At what point does being a parent quietly turn into a life sentence? I used to believe there was a finish line, 18, 21, some invisible moment when the responsibility would lift and my own life could finally begin again. Every parent is told this in one form or another. You pour yourself into the early years, and somewhere down the road opens back up. But what happens when that moment never comes? What happens when you reach for the door you've been waiting to walk through your whole adult life, and you find it was welded shut years ago? And worse, what if you were holding the torch? If you've ever felt this, if you've ever loved someone so completely that you slowly disappeared inside their needs, stay with me. Because what I'm about to describe isn't just my story. It's a pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Entangled in chaos, understand the chaos, break the pattern. Let me tell you where I am, and then let me tell you how I got here. I'm in my mid-50s. I've reached the age where you stop measuring your days in hours and start measuring them in energy. My back aches in places it never used to. Sleep comes lighter now. Patience runs thinner. Every decision feels heavier because there is simply less road ahead of me than behind. I live in a house with 2 other adults, and on paper, all 3 of us are grown, but only one of us is actually permitted to grow up. My daughter is 27 years old, chronologically, legally, but emotionally, she's frozen somewhere around 12, old enough to argue, too young to carry responsibility. She moves through the world like someone who genuinely believes that if she ignores gravity long enough, it will stop applying to her. Her mother, my partner, has always been the shield, the fixer, the enforcer and the rescuer, often in the same breath. A parent who started hovering the day our daughter was born and never once came in for a landing. Every scraped knee smoothed over before it could teach balance. Every failure softened before it could teach resilience. Every consequence intercepted before it could do the one thing consequences are designed to do, teach. And then there's me, standing slightly off to the side, watching a machine spin faster every year, knowing exactly where it leads, and getting punished every time I reach for the brake. Now here's where I want you to pay attention, because the moment everything changed for me wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a screaming match or a slammed door. It was quiet, almost invisible. I caught myself thinking a single sentence, "I'll just wait one more year." That was the shock, not her behavior, not the tantrums, the sentence. Because the instant I heard it in my own head, I realized I had been repeating that exact phrase for almost 10 years. 18 came and went. Nothing changed. 19, 20, still the same. 21, another quiet promise to myself, another year swallowed whole. And here we were at 27, and I was still standing in the same spot, still saying the same 4 words, still waiting for a door that was never going to open on its own. Now stay with that feeling for a second, because I want to come back to why that sentence is so dangerous. But first, let me show you what I tried. I tried logic. That was my first mistake. I genuinely believed that if I explained things clearly, calmly, adult to adult, something would finally click. Rent, responsibility, consequences, the real world waiting outside our front door, the conversations that are supposed to happen when childhood ends. But logic doesn't work on a system that isn't running on logic. It gets chewed up and spit back out as blame. Trying to reason inside my house was like trying to play chess against someone throwing dodgeballs. Different games, different rules, same board, and somehow I was always the one getting hit. Every attempt to intervene turned me into the villain. Every boundary I named became an act of aggression. Every gentle suggestion got reframed instantly as control, criticism, or cruelty. So eventually I stopped talking, and then I resented the silence. And then the cycle simply reset and began again. If you've lived inside a dynamic like this, you already know the specific loneliness of it. You're standing in a burning building, pointing at the flames, and everyone around you insists you're the arsonist. And here's the part I resisted for the longest time, the part that felt almost impossible to accept. The chaos wasn't the problem. The chaos was the point. Let me pause the story here, because this is the moment my entire understanding flipped. and I think it's the moment that matters most for you. For years, I assumed my family was broken, that something had malfunctioned, that if I could just find the right words, the right intervention, the right day, I could repair it. I was operating on the belief that everyone in that house wanted the same thing I did: peace, stability, growth, and simply didn't know how to get there. That belief was wrong, and it was keeping me trapped. Because in family psychology, there's a principle called homeostasis. Every system, every family develops an unspoken balance point, and it will fight hard to protect that balance. Even when the balance is miserable, even when it's toxic, the system doesn't ask whether it's healthy, it only asks whether it's stable. What I finally understood is that my family's stability was built out of conflict. The dysfunction wasn't accidental, it was functional, it was doing a job. Watch how the pieces fit together. My partner's entire sense of purpose came from being needed, from fixing, rescuing, intervening. If our daughter ever became fully capable, independent, self-sufficient, grown, then who would need rescuing? The role that gave her identity would simply vanish. And my daughter's entire emotional world was organized around being taken care of. Her meltdowns weren't just distress. They were signals. They summoned the rescuer. They confirmed, again and again, that someone would always step in before the world got too heavy. The two of them fed off each other's reactions like two exposed wires sparking in a closed room. One explodes, the other ignites. Anger created purpose. Conflict created meaning. The drama wasn't a breakdown of the system. The drama was the system. Which meant that if my daughter ever grew up, the whole structure collapsed. If my partner ever let go, her control, her identity, evaporated. And if I stepped in and introduced actual health, I threatened the entire arrangement. So the system did what every system does when something threatens its balance. It pushed back on the source of the disturbance, and the source of the disturbance was me. That's why I kept becoming the villain, not because I was wrong, because I was destabilizing. There's a term for this in family systems work, the identified patient. Usually it refers to the one person a family points to and says, they're the problem, everything would be fine without them. But what struck me is how often that label lands on the wrong person. Sometimes the one being scapegoated isn't the sick one. Sometimes they're the only one trying to get well, and the family targets them precisely because their health is a threat. Let me translate all of this out of the textbook and back into a kitchen at 9 o'clock at night, because that's where it actually lives. I have physically stood between two grown adults screaming at each other. Two people I love, trapped in a loop, voices sharp enough to draw blood, the air in the room vibrating, my heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. I put my own body in the middle of it, trying to absorb the collision. And when the dust settled, I was still the problem, not the screaming, not the tantrums, not the emotional warfare rewriting itself in real time, history revised on the spot to fit whoever needed to be the victim that night. Me, the man trying to stop it. The arguments were always the same. Different details, identical architecture. One person explodes, the other escalates, someone storms off, doors slam, tears, accusations. And then slowly the whole thing resets and everyone waits for the next spark. A merry-go-round from hell, and you cannot get off a merry-go-round without jumping. There's no gentle exit. There's only the moment you decide to stop reaching for the door and start reaching for the ground. So what do you actually do? Because I know that's the question sitting in your chest right now. Understanding the pattern is one thing, living differently inside it is another. Let me give you what actually helped, not vague advice, but the specific shifts that started to change things. The first one is the hardest, so I'll say it plainly. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. Read that again if you need to. For years I believed that if someone in my house was upset, it was my job to fix it, absorb it, or prevent it. That belief is the entry point to enmeshment. A boundary isn't a wall you build to punish someone. A boundary is the line where you end and another adult begins. It sounds like this: I can see you're upset, I'm not going to argue about it, and I'm not going to fix it for you. And then, this is the part that terrifies people, you let them be upset. Their discomfort is not an emergency, it's the beginning of their growth. The second shift, stop mistaking rescue for love. Everything my partner did came from a place that looked like devotion, but protecting someone from every consequence isn't love. It's a slow theft. It quietly steals a person's chance to become capable. Real love, sometimes, is standing back and letting the lesson land. The third, recognize the loop before you're inside it. Dysfunctional systems run on predictable scripts. Once you can name the pattern, this is the part where I get cast as the villain so the real conflict gets buried. You stop reacting on cue. You don't have to play your assigned role just because someone hands you the script. Naming the pattern out loud, even just to yourself, breaks its spell. And the fourth, the one I'm still learning, you can love someone and still choose your own life. Those two things are not in competition, no matter how loudly a broken system insists they are. Because here's the truth I finally had to face. My daughter's emotional immaturity isn't just sad, it's dangerous to her. The real world does not absorb tantrums. Employers do not soften meltdowns. Relationships do not bend forever. Reality always collects its debt. And every year we intercept the lesson, the eventual bill grows larger. That's the thing no one wants to say out loud. Protecting someone from life doesn't make them stronger. It just makes the fall, whenever it finally comes, so much harder to survive. And when that fall comes, I won't be able to catch her. None of us will. The very rescue we thought was love will have made the ground that much farther away. So let me come back to where we started, that quiet little sentence. I'll just wait one more year. I understand now why it was so dangerous. It felt like patience. It felt like love. It felt like hope. But it was none of those things. It was the sound of a system protecting itself, using my own decency against me. Every one more year wasn't a step toward change. It was the system buying itself another lease. I don't want revenge. I want you to hear that clearly, because this was never about blame. The people in my story aren't monsters. They're human beings caught in a mechanism none of them fully chose, playing roles that were handed to them long before they understood what they were agreeing to. I don't want to expose anyone. I want to expose the pattern, because the pattern is the thing that traps us, not the people. What I want is something quieter and harder than revenge. I want out, not out of their lives, out of the loop. I want to love them without dissolving into them. I want whatever road I have left to be mine. And if you're standing where I stood, between two sparking wires, holding a torch you didn't know was welding a door shut, I want you to understand one thing before you go. The door was never really locked from the outside. It only felt that way. If this story found something real in you, stay with me. There's more coming, because a cycle like this doesn't break in a single moment. It breaks in stages, and I'll walk through each one with you. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next chapter.